Today I'm kitbashing an Iron Warriors Daemon Prince and I'm using this guy over here as the base for this conversion and kitbash. It is the Iron Circle Domitar Ferrum class battle automata and he is the perfect proxy for a Daemon Prince. This is the actual Daemon Prince model and he is almost the exact same height. You could put wings on this guy, which is definitely what I'm gonna do, and he could be a nice winged Daemon Prince. But there's a few things wrong with this model, in my humble opinion. First of all, he has a shield and a hammer. Great stuff, good Iron Warrior stuff, but the hammer is on this side and the shield is on that side. But he has a bolter on his shoulder on that side, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. See, if I have a shield here and a bolter there, I'm gonna move towards my enemies like this. And then the bolter is sort of shooting over my head while I'm holding my shield. No, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If the bolt is there, the shield is there, the bolter can shoot over the shield like that. That makes a whole lot more sense. So I'm gonna put the shield on the other side of this model. So that's the shield in place and it's nice up high, so he's actually protecting himself more like an action pose. And now the other side. So there's one other thing that I don't like about this miniature for a Daemon Prince of 40k is that it's too much 30k. See, in 30k everything was still new, everything was still in a good working order. They knew how to make these bots and they used them and they would get damaged and then they would just replace the parts that would damage. But in 40k things are different, especially if you're Chaos. You don't have access to the same manufactorums, the same planets where they build all this stuff. So a hammer that he was wielding, that thing would break just during the normal course of combat. So I'm going to replace that with this thing over here. And this is a flail. It comes from the Brood Terror, which I used to kitbash this orc pain boss with. You know, this is a pain boy that grew up to be his own boss on one day. And so this thing, I think it's a really nice, it's a really vicious weapon and it just fits perfectly over here. In this nice twisted pose like this, he can drag it along the ground, ready to slash out with this flail around his own shield. I just have to fix it in place with a bit of green stuff in there because the part that's supposed to be used to close this off, I think it's on him. I don't know, it's gone. But I just stick it on here with the green stuff and then I can cover it up with some 3mm hobby chain. There, that looks like a really improvised weapon. They really had to chain it to his arm to keep it working. It's that sort of dilapidated grimdark look that I like so much about Chaos Marines. Now, while I have the chain out, I think I'm gonna add a little bit to his shoulder pads. And I do that by just adding a little bit of super glue to the underside of the shoulder pad and then I drop this piece of chain right on there. Let it set for a little bit and then you pull the chain down very gently because the glue is nowhere near set and you get this sort of layer of chainmail, this sort of curtain that's hanging off the shoulder pads. I think it's cool. It sort of imitates mail under plate armor that you see with medieval knights and it adds quite a lot to a shoulder pad like this. I'm gonna add a little bit more on both sides. There, that looks pretty good. It looks a bit weird when I'm holding like this. When he stands up straight and he has the chains hanging down, it looks a whole lot better and you get three different effects at once. You get a more industrial effect because of the chains, you get a more cobbled together effect because it's not supposed to be there and that's obvious, and he looks more like a medieval knight. It's as if you're slapping three Imperial fists with one stroke. Now, I was thinking this whole 40k thing, getting more armor on him, getting more protection on him, let's also get a little bit more firepower on him because he has this little bolter here on his shoulder. That's not a siege weapon. So I went to my knight's sprue and I have this autocannon over here, which would be cool, like a big autocannon on his shoulder. But I think some kind of missile rack is better. There, that's more of a siege weapon and I had it left over from when I made my Luminarch Knight a couple weeks ago. So, perfect use of some leftover bits. Now, the question is where am I gonna mount it? I can put it here on his head, right in the center, or I could put it on the space where his bolter used to be, a little off-center and to the back. But the thing is, I want to add wings to this Daemon Prince because I want to make it a winged Daemon Prince for the Iron Warriors because why not? And I have Vashtor's wings left over from when I made my Thousand Suns Daemon Prince. This guy over here, also on the channel right now. So I'm just gonna cut these out and then I gotta figure out where I'm gonna put these because I could stick him somewhere here on the back, but then I think he's sticking out too far to the side. I could put it on here where the bolt is supposed to be. That's a good position, but the other side doesn't have that location. So I think I just have to put them right here onto the shoulder pads, like this. A little twisted, a little tilted so that you can actually see them when you look at the miniature from the front, and a little bit to the side, makes them stick out, and this way I have a nice winged Demon Prince. And it also makes the decision for me about where I'm going to put these rockets, because they can't fit there on that shoulder launch pad anymore, so they'll have to be right here in the center. And with everything blue tacked on, he looks like this. I think it's a pretty good profile. He looks good, he looks menacing, he looks cobbled together like a 40k miniature, not a 30k automaton. He has his wings. I do think I can push this a little bit further though. And when I say push it a little bit further, I mean make him more 40k and less 30k. Let's start with an exhaust. Right here on his shoulder where his bolter used to be. And this is a Melta pipe, Melta gun of some Imperial Guard tank. And I'm gonna add this little missile pod onto the shield. Now, small rockets, because how else are you gonna load them? But it looks like they're coming out of his arm if he's holding that shield in place. And since that shield is such an eye-catcher, I'm gonna add some chains with skulls and hooks to it as well. And this piece, I think, could fit perfectly under that little rocket pod. And a little trophy rack here at the top of the shield. Might make it harder for him to look over it, but it looks cool. A bit of chain to crisscross over it that they can hang trophies off at a later point, and it's time to distress most of the model, because I want to make it look like it's been in combat for about 10,000 years. And this soft forge weld resin is fantastic for making battle damage. Your knife just slides right into it, and I have to say, for a forge weld model, this thing is not bad at all. I have a couple of Custodes Dread Knights and they are horrible to get together, missing pieces, the parts are just holes in them, the spears are bent. This thing, it's not bad. Now with the paint scheme, I want to reinforce what I already described before. I want this to look like a cobbled together mess. Like the body, yeah sure, that's 30k. But the armor plating, that has been replaced because it gets damaged, it gets knocked. As you can see, there's lots of battle damage on there now. So I'm just giving it a little bit more of a texture with this corrosion texture. And then I create a little bit more texture by stippling on a couple of blacks and some Iron Warriors. And I'm not doing this first one, then the other, then the other. I'm going back and forth, because that way you get a more mottled and rough effect. And now that the armor plating looks rough and worn, I'm gonna paint the chassis, the wings, but also the chest piece with some Iron Warriors straight onto the primer. Then it gets a highlight of silver and a wash of Drakenhof Nightshade. That's this blue shade, and it will give it this sort of magical tint, because I want the warpsmiths to be standing there looking at this thing and go, man, they just don't make them how they used to. But the blue also contrasts very nicely with some warm colored hazard stripes. So let's do that. First, a little bit of Jokero orange to give this a sort of base layer before I use the yellow. And then I use black to roughen up these lines, because I don't think a Chaos Cultist draws these lines perfectly straight or bothers using masking tape or anything like that. So my stripes are a bit squiggly, a bit crooked and very, very rough. Now, time for the armor trim, and I'm gonna use some Runelord Brass first, and a bit of Nihilakh Oxide with some black mixed in, just to darken it down a bit. A quick dry brush of Runelord Brass, it takes off the Nihilakh Oxide of the raised edges and just makes it look a little less worn. Now it's time for some of this battle damage that I inflicted on the model. I'm just gonna take some silver and sort of get in every deep gouge and hole, and make sure I hit the rims as well. And then I put a drop of highly diluted Dirty Down Rust in there. And then it's time for a bit of grime in the form of a dark brown wash. Then some rust streaks, and then I dry brush the armor panels ever so lightly with a little bit of Iron Warriors, because I need that chipping on the edges of the armor plates. But the parts of the armor that are 30k, like the chest piece, that gets a little bit of silver. Time to make them leak, because all of those connecting hoses, but also those pistons, they need to be lubricated, and they're probably not in perfect repair. So they're leaking, as I've got Ichor of the Damned over here, that's nice and glossy, but I also have over there fuel stains and engine oil, more glossy enamels that are great for painting leaks on these robots. Now I gotta put him on his base before I can finish with some pigment powders and some dust and some blood effects and so on and so forth. So I prepared this base and I tried something new, because I want to show the weight of this guy a little bit better. You know, it's a very heavy bot standing on a base, but I made an asphalt base so it can't really sink into the ground. Instead, I put this sort of metal gate, I know, fencing something on there, and I want to see if I can push him down onto it to make it look like he's depressing this gate. Then he needs a little bit of blood effect, not too much, but on the flail, just to show that he has been using it. And let's do a little bit of blood spatter on his side over here where he has that flail. Time for a bit of dust, because my Iron Warriors, they would be sieging somewhere, and somewhere is not on a barren planet in the middle of nowhere. It's in an urban environment, somewhere where there's a fort, where there's something to fight over. So I need a lot of this concrete dust, which is this white pigment powder from Vallejo, but I'll add a little bit of black in there as well. And then my Iron Warriors Daemon Prince is done, and he's truly iron within, iron without. All of the power of a Daemon Prince, but none of the possession or the mutation that other legions dabble in. I love him. He's also really cobbled together. It's what I set out to make, like a Frankenstein monster of 40k and 30k bits. That core that is still shiny and sort of this bluish metal, while the armor plating is rough and coarse, almost like cast iron. Like somebody just bolted it onto this beautiful inner core of this Daemon Prince. The wings, Vashtor's wings, I think it was the only option I had, because you're not going to put bat wings or bird wings on an automaton like this. And it fits him really well. The little missile pod, I think it makes him more of a siege robot or a siege dreadnought, because you can imagine him blasting open a wall or a door and then storming in with his breacher shield up high and ready to slash out with that flail he has. I love him. And if you enjoyed this video, share it with your friends. Channel members and patrons can already see next week's video, but you can see lots of work in progress and other pics in the Discord. And in the meantime, maybe check out this video next.